Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to today's presentation. Today, we'll be exploring the fascinating concepts of distance versus displacement. On this first slide, you'll see the title of our session, Distance versus Displacement, along with a subtitle that hints at what we'll cover. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into understanding how these two ideas differ and why they're important in physics. I'll keep it brief. So let's get started and make this an engaging learning experience. Imagine you're taking a walk in a park. You start at a certain point, wander around, and somehow, by the end of your walk, you find yourself back where you began. Now, here's the interesting part. How far did you actually travel? And how far are you from your original starting spot? These questions might seem simple, but they open up a lot of fascinating ideas about distance and movement. The key point here is that the total distance you traveled could be quite different from the straight-line distance between your starting point and your ending point. This distinction is fundamental in understanding how we measure movement and how different concepts of distance play into broader ideas, especially in fields like physics and mathematics. Throughout this presentation, we're going to explore these concepts further, helping us see the world from a new perspective on movement and measurement. Let's talk about distance. Distance is essentially the total path you travel from one point to another. For example, if you walk 3 meters east and then 4 meters west, your total distance you've covered is 7 meters. Every step you take adds up, so it's important to remember that distance counts all movement, regardless of direction. This concept is fundamental because it helps us understand the full extent of movement, regardless of where you end up. Throughout this presentation, keeping track of distance will help us better understand how objects move and how to measure that movement accurately. Displacement is the straight-line distance from your starting point to your ending point. Think of it as the most direct path between where you began and where you ended up. Even if you walk around a park or take a winding route, your displacement only cares about your initial position and your final position. For example, if you walk around and end up just 1 meter west of where you started, your displacement is simply 1 meter west. It's a way to measure your overall change in position, rather than the total distance you traveled. This concept helps us understand movement in a more precise way, especially when comparing different paths. So remember, displacement is all about the shortest distance between start and finish, and it's an important idea in understanding how objects move through space. Imagine a racetrack for a moment. A runner starts at the starting line and completes one full lap around the track, covering 400 meters. Now, even though they've run a full 400 meters, their displacement, which is the straight-line distance from their starting point to their ending point, is actually 0. That's because they end up right back where they started. This example highlights a key idea in understanding displacement versus distance. Distance is the total length traveled, regardless of direction, while displacement considers only the initial and final positions. So, in this case, the runner's total distance is 400 meters, but their displacement is 0. This illustrates that displacement depends on the overall change in position, not just how far someone has traveled along the path. It's a simple yet powerful way to see how displacement can sometimes be quite different from the total distance traveled, especially in circular or curved paths. And that's a core concept as we think about motion and how we measure it. Remember, when we talk about distance, we're referring to the total path traveled, no matter what the direction is. It's like walking around a track. You add up every step you take. Displacement, on the other hand, is the straight-line measurement from your starting point directly to your ending point. Think of it as the shortest path between 2 points. This distinction is really important because it helps us understand movement more clearly. Distance gives us the overall effort or length of the journey, while displacement focuses on the overall change in position. So, in summary, distance equals the total path traveled, and displacement is just the straight line from start to finish. Keeping these concepts in mind will help us analyze motion more effectively, especially when comparing different paths or routes.